So, neuroscience has discovered that you are bankrupting your brain. When you look at it fundamentally, this is mind blowing. So, our brains are only like 2 to 3% of our body's mass. The rest of our body is a lot heavier than our brains, but our brains use 20% of our body's energy on a day to day basis. That's pretty insane by itself. But not only that, the bigger problem here is that the part of your brain that is responsible for your sense of identity, your sense of self, your sense of you or me is actually consuming 40% above the baseline for the brain's energy consumption, which means that a ton of the energy in your brain is densely compacted into the area that is responsible for your sense of self, the differentiation between me and you, this and that, good and bad, hot and cold, anything that differentiates. And not only that, but like the differentiation and relationship between me and those things, me and the world, you and us, and how we relate to the world around us. So think about what that means. The brain is using an abnormal, like an obscene amount of its daily bodily energy to maintain its relationship to the world around it that it perceives and its coherent sense of self and narrative. The I am insert statement here. I am this, I am that. And all of the beliefs about yourself, about the world, and about how you fit into the world that you believe it to be. So this is a massively energetic process. And so then the question becomes, why did the brain develop that in the first place? Why would you need to spend so much energy maintaining this sense of self? And what would happen if you stopped paying that price? How much is it costing you to maintain all of these beliefs about the world, about what this means for you, what you mean to the world, and what the relationship you have to the world matters to you in the in-between? Like, what are all of these relations and why does the energy matter so much? So that's where the investigation begins. And for me, the important transition here, the thought process is think about the times when you don't think about yourself. There's an interesting correlation here, and that's because think about times in performance, in the times when you feel as though you were at your peak, when you're doing things that you didn't even know you could do. This is generally referred to as flow states, or being in the zone, feeling the flow of the moment. You're playing the piano and it feels like the piano is playing itself. You're writing a movie script and the script feels like it's writing itself. You are playing basketball and the ball seems to be just moving in a way that feels effortless. You could be coming up with ideas, or like improv comedy, or whatever it is. You could be runner's high. There's a ton of different, words or statements for these things. Obviously, flow states in meditation, or even soldiers describe how time slows down when they're in battle, or NFL wide receivers will describe how the time slows down and the ball looks like it's going in slow motion as they're catching it in the end zone. MLB batters describe the same thing. At the plate, it feels like the ball's going in slow motion at times, and it allows them to hit the game-winning home run or the grand slam or whatever. These are flow states. And so how could we be experiencing time slowing down, effortless action, and all of these things while at the same time if our brain's using so much energy on these other processes? So could it be possible that when those processes quiet, it enables you to perform at a higher level? Not only to perform, but to have a broader sense of presence, of purpose, of meaning, and live a more meaningful life in that way. And that's what we've been hypothesizing, and that's what a lot of the work is now showing, and what so much of the work that we've been doing is now revealing. So think about how insane that is. There's a trade-off between how much you can think about yourself, how much you can orient yourself to the world, how much you can understand the difference between this and that, here and there, hot and cold, good and bad, right and wrong, better and worse, best and absolute worst, and how much how effectively you can perform in the moment. There's a trade-off. you can't both have the most amount of self-referential processing about thinking about yourself, thinking about you and I and how much this means in the moment, and also performing your best. There is going to be a trade-off. So this has a lot of implications, not just for performance, because, I mean, obviously, from an athlete's point of view, that seems obvious. Then the question becomes, well, then how can I stop thinking about myself more? And that's a weird question to ask. But then this has implications on what is consciousness, what is awareness, what does it mean to be present, what have the meditative practices been pointing to this entire time, how do beliefs work? And that's where we begin to kind of explore further down this rabbit hole. Fundamentally, what are beliefs? That's an interesting question in itself. And this is a lot of recent work from Carhart-Harris and many in that field, Friston and many others who have done research on belief landscapes, and a lot of recent research inside of hallucinogens and psychedelics in general have pointed to the expansion of one's beliefs, or the ability to dissolve beliefs in different ways in relation to psychedelics. Because what do psychedelics do? And when you look at what psychedelics do, it's exactly what you would expect when comparing the trade-off we described earlier. It directly affects the sense of self, the default mode network in neuroscience that is most responsible for one's sense of self, one's sense of meaning, long-term story about what one believes about oneself, and how one relates to the world. And psychedelics directly affect those systems, and it inhibits them to perform their tasks. So, well, what does that mean about beliefs? That means there's some sort of correlation between the beliefs about the world, the beliefs about oneself, and the amount of self-referential thinking, and therefore the trade-off between performance and self-referential thinking. Well, that's pretty interesting in itself. So then could you potentially, dissolve beliefs or dissolve meaning structures to free up energy to increase performance? Well, I mean, in traditional meditative practices, that's exactly what is happening. In non-dual awareness practices, what are they doing? They're saying to observe oneself, to notice the tendencies, the ideas that arise, the judgments that arise, and they tell you not to assign additional value to those judgments. So instead of thinking missing a free throw is bad, you have to dissolve the meaning structure around what missing a free throw even means in the first place. Because at the end of the day, all it is a guy doing some muscle movements and a ball flows from his hands through a metal hoop. It's really just physics at the absolute baseline. So why is there so much meaning attached to a free throw in a practice gym versus a free throw in the NBA finals or a high school state championship? These inherently aren't different beliefs. And so now this gets very interesting in performative psychology or in sports psychology. Because, for example, Tiger Woods had said, really all elite golfers, the best ones, say that when they're playing their best, there is absolutely zero difference in their mind between a practice tee shot in a practice round or on a driving range and at the Masters. But for the average person, myself included, for a long time, that felt like something that athletes would just say. Like, you don't actually believe that. Because if you did, there's just no way. Because clearly in the Masters, there's millions of dollars on the line. There's your entire career, that could change when you win the Masters, like your legacy. But fundamentally, what are those things? Those are just beliefs about the action. The action itself is actually no different. Tiger Woods is swinging a golf club. A club hits the ball goes somewhere. That same body is hitting the same club with the same golf ball on potentially the same course. It could be a practice round and then the tournament. But what is the difference between a practice round and a tournament? Physically, there's no difference. It's literally you playing golf either way. The only difference is what you assign as meaning in those contexts. So then you have to ask, how in the world could meaning change your performance? This is so common to every human experience that we never even sit there and ask, what does that mean itself? Why in the world could a practice round feel different than a tournament? It's the same action, it's the same person, it's the same clubs, it's the same environment. Realistically, nothing should feel different. It's the same physical act happening in both cases. So why does it often seem so much harder to do that physical act inside of a tournament or in a competition or a performance, whether it's playing the piano or, acting or playing a sport or playing a video game? Why does the official thing feel different than the practice thing? They shouldn't. And this is where it goes straight back to what are beliefs in the first place? What are context? What is the meaning structure that we over time have developed? And so then you have to get back into asking, how do humans develop beliefs in the first place? What are beliefs? What effect do they have on us on a day-to-day basis? And when you keep following those questions, you have to ask, who am I in the first place? And what is the default mode network doing? It's maintaining a sense of self, a sense of me versus other, me versus it out there. And so realistically, when connecting this sense of I to what is a belief, at some point you have to believe who you are. And that fundamental identity, whatever defines you, is something that your body will then defend itself. So that means that your body will defend what you believe you are or who you are. And what's weird about that then is that means that your body is using the same machinery, the same underlying mechanism that it used for thousands of years to defend our ancestors and even you when you were young for survival, to survive. At work, for example, one of your coworkers says something about you, and then suddenly your face gets hot, your palms get sweaty, knees are weak, arms, and from there, your body fires off those physiological responses. But what are those physiological responses? We think of them as emotions, and we think of them as valid responses to the environment or to the situation. But realistically, what's happening there? Your body is actually reacting as if it's a threat to your survival, in the same way that a tiger would be in the bushes to our ancient ancestors, and then our face would get hot and our adrenaline would spike and cortisol would spike, and suddenly we need to act, we need to go, we need to fight, we need to run. One of those defenses or those responses to threat. So there's different ways that your body would have learned to potentially engage with threat, whether it's to embrace those around you, whether it's to identify the threat and escape, or whether it's to get up and fight with anger, for example, kind of archetypally in that sense. Those are all different responses. But then you could even go further than that and switch it. Those are negative responses. Think about what's driving you there. It's like negative emotions, anger, grief, shame, any type of negative response, anxiety, for example. But what would it look like to flip that on its head? In modern society, what are threats? In reality, what's happening in that work environment? It's a person saying a thing about you. But there's so many ways that we could, even if the worst thing happened in that scenario and those people, whatever you did, made them hate you and they wanted to kick you out, fire you. But there are so many fallback options in life for the average person nowadays in modern society that realistically, what's the worst thing that could happen? Maybe you lose your job for a while. Maybe things are bad. Maybe you have to move out of your house, but you're still alive. You still know everything you already know. You still have all the skills you already have. You have the network of friends and family that you already have. You have your church, your organizations, the groups you're a part of, the hobbies you have, all the technology you already own, things like that. And you have the access to information that the richest people alive a few hundred years ago couldn't even come close to. So there's so many things that we have going for us in modern society that the fact that we perceive these small, minor events as existential threats, where we're sitting there sweating over a reply to a text or what emoji to use when texting a girl or something. It's like, how are we responding in a way that feels like we're going to die to an emoji choice in a text? Like, this is how far and abstract things have gotten in life. And so this is literally where that 40% of that energy is going. I mean, if our brain is using 20% of our entire body's energy, even though it's only 3% of mass, and then our sense of self and ego and meaning is using 40% above the brain's baseline just to keep us organized in the world, it's defending, our core beliefs, our core identities. And when we were 3 years old, sure, I mean, our life was a threat if we were left in the grocery store alone. But as an adult, that's not a problem at all. And that same mechanism, even though the store example is extremely trivial, sure, at that point, your parent is your survival. But then as you grow older, your roles become your survival. I'm a parent, I'm a teacher, I'm a student, I'm a employee, I'm a whatever, insert role here, but then you can abstract it a layer higher. You can be, I am now my actions in those roles. My actions and achievements is what defines me. My work ethic and how hard I work and the things I do is what defines me. Not just the role, the label, but actually the actions of that role is what defines me. But then you can abstract it a layer higher. It could be your values, the things that you see as important to being a human, whether that's like your integrity or your honesty or your authenticity or your genuine sense of self or your sense of adventure or your sense of purpose, what you believe makes life matter or meaningful. Those things could then be your fundamental beliefs. And then when those things are threatened, then that's when that same architecture and emotion arises. So people can be angry for entirely different reasons, but experience the same anger because the ego is defending that belief with that felt sense of anger and fight. And those are entirely different. Those are the same response to underlying entirely different beliefs. And so with this video, what I want you to sit with, and we're going to, of course, address all of this in future content to a much more in-depth degree. But right now, there is something that in these emotional moments, your body is defending. Your ego is defending these little underlying beliefs. And of course, subconsciously, unconsciously, your ego doesn't want you to analyze these things. Part of the defense strategy is the fact that these beliefs are unknown to you. They are part of the unconscious. So you can't fully articulate them right off the rip. So you have to follow the emotional responses and follow the context of the moment. What about this moment is making me angry right now, making me anxious, making me sad, making me feel this sense of dread or shame? And then you can follow those emotions down to underlying beliefs that once you observe them and you can begin to ask, well, does this serve me anymore? Is this really something that I need to believe for life to matter? Does the person's belief about me at work change who I am as a person? Does it change my sense of self? Does it have an effect on my life? Does losing this thing or potentially risking this thing really matter in the long run? Does it actually does it actually matter? If it was lost, so what? What's the difference here? Why does it really matter that much? And start to follow those beliefs and see where they lead you. And we'll talk a lot more about what this means, but those are all energy. Those are the rent, the tax you're paying to maintain this sense of self, this sense of why this shot matters, why this performance matters, why this thing matters, why their opinion matters about me, why this failure or success would be important for my life trajectory, whatever that means, whatever the optimal path could or couldn't be for you. Is it okay if it could just be, if it could just exist, and then whatever happens, happens? Because you're going to be fine either way. And in that process, for me, that has absolutely opened up life in a beautiful way. And things have emerged that I never could have imagined by doing this process slowly but surely over years. And I would love to hear how this could manifest for you over time. And we can join me on that journey as we slowly release the chains of our unnecessary beliefs, one belief at a time. So I'll link a lot more in the description about more of this information and the research and the science behind it if you're interested. And we'll be following a lot more of this in the future on this channel. So thanks for watching. Talk to you soon. Bye.